know where Helen's gone there, but maybe we'll make a start actually then, now that we've got Tina here. I'm really delighted to, it's a pleasure to have you join us this afternoon, Tina. So Tina is Country Managing Director of Staffline Ireland, one of the largest recruitment and public service companies in Britain and Ireland. She has extensive international experience in senior management positions within the recruitment sector, and won Business Personality of the Year in 2018. And Tina is also, now correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, now Tina, Chair of the Federation of Small Business in Northern Ireland, Consul of Finland, and a member of the Department for the Economic Advisory Group. And I have to say, Tina, looking over your bio and that, I think that's only been the tip of the iceberg really there. So like, I'm really looking forward to hearing your kind of story, and maybe, you know, if you could introduce us with your own kind of background and perhaps education and career choices, and what led you into the world of recruitment and HR services from an early age.
Well, thank you, Kieran, and thanks for inviting me. It's just unfortunate we can't see everyone in a room together. You know, I think when we're talking, we're giving, I've done quite a lot of talks. It's nice to feel the energy in a room. So I'm just going to assume everyone's sending me positive vibes through the cameras. That's what I'm going to assume. Well, hello to everyone. Although it says Kirsten McClay on the corner of my screen, I'm Tina McKenzie. And gosh, how did I get into recruitment? I fell into it like most people. It was purely an accident, but maybe I'll go back on my career journey and a wee bit, as you said, on my education. So grew up in Belfast and was in a family where we had lots of small businesses, which is my small business connection. Everything from gyms to, although obviously I wasn't availing of too many gyms to shops to cafes, you name it. You know, we were working in it from a very young age, and work was always, I guess, deemed more important than education. Education wasn't a big important thing back then for us anyway. And I know a lot of people were really, in the tough times in Belfast, or Northern Ireland, were really pushed into education, which I think was a good thing. By hook or by crook, I got to university. I was never very academic, and, you know, not inclined to, with the type of brain I have now looking back, not inclined to sit and read books, and you know, it's tough to keep my attention. And therefore, it'd have to be something really interesting for me to really get engaged in and learn. I guess when I got to A-level stage, I started to be able to pick things that I enjoyed, and therefore started to do it a little bit better, but certainly no high flyer in the academic world. I went to University of Ulster just because my mates were there, to be honest. And I had in my mind that I would do politics. I've always been interested in politics. And when I got to the university, Coleraine, where I'd already organised my flat in Portrush, I was told that they didn't do politics. And I said, right, well, I've already got my flat. What have you got that's like politics? And they said, philosophy. That'll do me. So I did a degree in philosophy, even though I didn't know what philosophy was at the time. And again, just about got through it. University, I got involved in the women's group. I got involved in, I worked for ENTS. I did the bus that took people to the nightclubs, made some money that way. And I also went home at weekends sometimes and worked as well. So I worked my way through, and every summer went to Camp America and worked in Camp America as well, and had great experiences and traveled a lot. So that's kind of where I got to with education. And I started a master's in health and social policy at the University of Ulster, and I took my first job at a place called Job Train, where I was working helping people who were coming through rehabilitation in our prisons and in the Young Offender Centre. It was my job to help them get some training and to get into a job. And I guess that's where I started working in the world of work. I left Northern Ireland 3 years later to go and find the dream. It was either going to be New York or London. I landed in London simply because a friend of mine and I had met some boys when we were away on holiday, and they told us how brilliant London was and they would put us up, and they did. And we stayed with them for a month, and then I got my job, got my house in London. I'd walked into a recruitment agency, said I was looking for a job in the public sector, ended up getting a job there. Within 6 months, became the manager of the agency, and within another, I guess, year, was like a mini regional manager in London. I didn't find it difficult because looking back, I already had the skills. You know, if you can multitask, as most women can, And if you're a hard worker, I was taking the shift that nobody wanted, which is 6 in the morning till usually 6 at night, in a very impoverished area of West London, a place called Hounslow, near the airport. And I was dealing with street sweepers, bin men, you know, you name it, I was dealing with it, and they were a tough crowd, but I actually really enjoyed it. You know, met some real salt of the earth type people. And my experience as a young person managing people in small businesses really set me up to do that quite well. And all of a sudden, I realized I could earn a hell of a lot of money in recruitment, and this was great. And I could just keep, your career was your own, because as hard as you were going to work, you could keep moving up and build bigger businesses, get more staff, earn more money. Nobody really was in your way. And I think that we have this idea sometimes of entrepreneurship being, all right, I've got to go out, go to the bank, get some money, or go to Invest NI and get some sort of a business plan, and then I'll become an entrepreneur. There are entrepreneurs everywhere, you know, whether you're working for PLCs, which I am now, or whether you're working for charities, or whether you're running your own business. The entrepreneurship bit is within you. And I think in terms of opportunities, again, I do still believe that we've all got great opportunities. However, we've got to work pretty hard for our ambitions to come alive. I didn't have a plan. Most people I know that are very senior in business didn't have a plan, and you're going along and you're taking every opportunity you can. And I'd say there are many people that are smarter than me, way smarter, book smart, street smart, whatever, but maybe didn't take all the opportunities that were in front of them. Maybe sometimes took the road that was like a more obvious road of employment and gainful employment. And I think as a result of me taking sometimes the tougher road, the uncertain road, I ended up getting opportunities that other people didn't. And I also was always prepared to say yes to anything. So if you think about me doing this, I've had Zoom calls all day long. I'm pretty flat out, and in all the jobs that I do, and we're mid-COVID, we're mid-Brexit, actually coming alive for us, and time is of the essence. But speaking to Queen's University graduates is not just hopefully helpful for them in terms of a bit of story about my journey, but who knows, one day maybe one of them will hire me as part of their businesses. You just never know what can happen. So that's basically how I ended up in recruitment. I then basically worked my way through, and I've worked for some of the biggest companies in the world. I had an office in Amsterdam. I worked across Europe. I got to learn all about the differences in the labour markets in all those countries. And I then wanted to come home. And I came home to Northern Ireland twice, actually. Once, and my career pulled me away again. And I came home again in the end of 2012. And I'd had a huge corporate job working as an international account director. It was a very nice job. I'd go meet people all around Europe and, you know, be in the best places, have a glass of wine, talk about international strategy and labour market strategy. It wasn't my most difficult job, and I really missed operations. So when I came back home to Northern Ireland, I approached Staffline, who are the largest blue collar agency in the UK. I approached them to talk about a franchise option. They wouldn't let me out of the room until I agreed to be their MD of Ireland. And MD of Ireland meant nothing because they didn't have an office here. I didn't have a computer. There was no back office. There was no payroll. There was nothing. So I was really kind of going back even 20 years in my career. And by doing that, I came back in to do a startup, which was so difficult. I didn't have a network in Northern Ireland anymore. So what did I do? Didn't have the money to join the CBI. Didn't have the money to join places like IBEC. Didn't have the money to join even, you know, some of the, like IOD. First thing I joined was Women in Business because it was cheap. And I got such support there. And I always have, I have to say, I really recommend Women in Business. And I also then joined the Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce. And I said, yes, 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 to any opportunity they had. And I ended up sitting on there. They had like a policy group as well. And so I built my network up by going to everything that was free, talking to people, offering my services. And eventually, after a year of losing £200,000, the next year turned into a profit. And within 7 years, we built a £150 million business. And we're now, we took over all our competitors in Northern Ireland, which was also my ambition. So we acquired Diamond Recruitment, which is huge. And then we acquired number one, which was Grafton Recruitment, which we got that 1.5 years ago. And I guess if I was just to say advice, I'll give you a little bit of an insight into Grafton. The people that owned it at the time, I called them in 2014 to talk about an acquisition. They told me basically where to go. I called them in 2015 and they laughed and said, you know, Staffline, who even are you in Ireland? We were so tiny, it was unreal. I called them again in 2016, same response. I called them several times in 2017, and you know, we had the whole Brexit decision by then, and it was definitely not a time for them to really look at selling their company. I called them several times in 2018, and eventually I called them the right time, on the right day, to the right guy who was in the right mood, who said he's definitely not selling, but he'd meet me in a pub in Dublin to have a conversation, which I did, and we did the deal over the coffee in the pub. And we took over the largest recruitment agency in Northern Ireland, hence why we're now number one in terms of recruitment. Staffline, 23% of the Northern Irish market. We supply all the public, you know, the trusts, Northern Ireland Civil Service, Belfast City Council, and so that was from starting in 2013 when nobody wanted to know us, definitely not. Nobody knew who I was for sure. And I had one staff member, and it was really, really tough. So I guess through all of my career and through everything, I guess just in conclusion, I think I've been lucky, but I think I've created some lucky opportunities. I've never really said no, which is a good thing and a bad thing. I've had to make some real sacrifices. So, for example, my husband became a stay-at-home dad because I traveled so much and I left home. I have 3 children. I left home on a Monday and didn't get home on a Thursday. And I don't know if everyone would want to make that sacrifice. I'm not even sure I should have made that sacrifice. We always look back and wonder. My children don't see it was a problem, but and they've all, you know, they're all pretty rounded and pretty good at giving me and their dad criticism. So who knows? So I'd say that, you know, anyone building a career, any entrepreneur out there, anyone that wants to do well, there's no surprise. It's a lot of hard work. There's no quick, easy way. I haven't met anyone. You have to have some grit in your belly. There has to be something that drives you. And sometimes with a lot of people I've met that've done really well, it is insecurity that's driving them. It's the fact that they don't want to not have certain things in life, certain securities. It's sometimes that they want their children to have a better life than they had. It's sometimes they don't want to rely on their parents. They want to make it themselves. Whatever it is, it's actually, you know, you need some sort of petrol in your car to make you go. And I call that the grit. And some people have a lot of it and some people have none of it. And it doesn't matter how academic you are. I can hire as many smart people as I want in Northern Ireland. And I can tell you a lot of smart people work for me. And I'm very lucky that I'm able to do that because we need certain types of skills. We often say it's like I'm a conductor of an orchestra within our team. They've all got brilliant skills. And all I'm doing is bringing them together to, what we say make music is to have great partnerships with customers. So that's, you know, in terms of the other jobs I do, Kieran. So, you know, you've seen my CV. I was Women's Ambassador for Women's Entrepreneurship Day in 2016. And I tell you, the amount of work I had to do, it was all voluntary, the amount of work I had to do outside of my job to get that pulled off across several European countries. I think we did 18 European countries. Was really, really hard. I also had a little touch into politics where I wanted to make Northern Ireland better and not orange and green. And I did NI21 in 2013, which was a real lesson as well. And now I volunteer for the Federation of Small Business because I'm able to put a voice, get out there in the media and put a voice out for small business owners and lobby for them. So it's not just about doing your job. It's also, and I mentor lots of people for women in business, and I have done through the years. So I think it's about giving, and somewhere around you get it back. It might not be from the person or the organization you're giving to, but I think give out good in the world and it comes back. I still work really, really hard. And I think that's either in you or not. But as I say, my one lesson is if you say yes to opportunity, even when you don't know what's coming back to you, if you offer to help people, even when you don't know they can do something for you, and if you work harder than everyone else, you're going to be top. There's no doubt about it. So that's kind of a bit about my story. I hope that was touching on what you wanted, Kieran.
Yeah, it's been very inspiring, actually, you know, because I must say, like, I have been able to have followed your career in terms of, you know, seen it in the media and that over the last number of years. And I was interested with something I wanted to ask you about how it how you went from the staffing, eventually like setting it up or taking, and I knew you'd taken over those other recruitment agencies in Northern Ireland, and then it was Grafton. And I think the Staffline Ireland, as far as I remember, the Grafton, that's been kind of fairly recently rebranded, wasn't it? Maybe like last year, that, you know. And to me, like the Grafton was quite a big or well-known agency on both sides of the border, you know. But I think it's interesting, Ray, you mentioned there about going from that, your family background, small business. You probably picked up a lot of, like, I don't know, skills and that when you were as part of that by osmosis, or also in terms of directly working there. But then you went to do the philosophy, and then you're getting into something, well, you know, let's say totally different. But I could see how those people skills and your own hard work and motivation and that drive then, and like a kind of a key takeaway I have there is about grasping opportunity, you know, and okay, you're making things happen for yourself.
Yeah.
Like I used to work with a guy, because I actually worked for IBEC myself many years ago.
All right.
I used to share an office with a guy, and he told me, he said, an opportunity passes you by every day. And I actually wish I had taken his advice more, but anyway, but you know, that there's sometimes things like when you're kind of in your early 20s and all, but I also thought that was a kind of a good little kind of, you know, it may sound kind of quite basic. Yeah. So I just have a question there, just from one of the participants there, just saying, Charissa there, what's your advice for those who have a lot of ideas and ambition, but aren't sure the best path to pour their energy or focus into? You know, I suppose it's, yeah, I mean, there's probably a lot of people like that. Like you kind of mentioned there, you seem to kind of, I don't know, I'm putting words in your mouth here, but like you fell into the recruitment area, probably not like your original plan. So it's probably touching on that, you know.
I think when we're at university, and even when we're picking A levels and things like that, we might have an idea, oh, I think I might go and work in this industry or this. The reality is that there are so many people with degrees these days, much more than when I came out of university. But even when I came out, you know, I think I got a third in my philosophy degree. I think at the time I was more interested in the other things I was doing at university, which were developing other skills as well. But, you know, when I came out, it was around, in those days, it was around how you interviewed. You as a person, making a connection to people. And I think that's really important. Simple things like learning to look someone in the eye, you're taking the time to look someone up before you go to meet them, you know, do your homework, stuff like that. And, you know, we're advising people every day who are going for jobs from, you know, jobs that are 200K a year to jobs that are minimum wage. And, you know, it is the simple things, and people recruit still today on feeling. People will invest on feeling. If they get the right gut feeling from you, the right energy, I suppose, and they believe you, then I think that people will go with you. But if you've got lots of ideas, what's really interesting is some people have ideas that I would say are more hobbies rather than businesses. So be clear about what it is. Are you keeping it as a hobby, or is it going to be a business that makes money? Because, you know, if you can do both, fantastic. But usually, you know, you have to be clear about a business is there to grow, make money, you know, maybe have an exit plan, maybe not. So be clear about what it is. And I know so many people with brilliant ideas. My husband's one of them. Every night he tells me something else he's thought about, another invention. Fantastic. But most people never do anything with it. It's the implementation, it's the execution. And one thing I'd say is don't be afraid to reach out to anybody who's in that field, who you may think, gosh, well, I can't reach out to them. They're like the CEO of whatever. I think most people that I know are quite happy if somebody reaches out to them just to, you know, run something by them, ask them for a wee bit of advice, you know, they're quite happy to give it. So don't assume just because you're a student that somebody won't help you or won't listen to your idea and maybe give you advice. And there's tons of organizations out there to support entrepreneurs. And, you know, even things like, I was just on earlier, working on a potential partnership with the Prince's Trust. And Prince's Trust is helping people up to the age of 30 start businesses. And there's so many organizations like that. So I would say, get yourself connected. It's free. If you're not on LinkedIn, then that's a mistake. Get yourself on LinkedIn, start to build your profile, not just your Facebook profile, you know, start to build a serious profile, but with your individuality. And make sure that you're connecting to people in the areas that you're interested in. And you may not get a job or start a business in the area you're interested in, but you're going to need to build a career. And whenever we're interviewing people, if you've been sitting for a year not doing anything, even if you've got lots of ideas or whatever, if you haven't been doing anything, that's a problem. you know, even if you're unemployed, we expect you to go and do something, whether it's voluntary work, whether in the pandemic, it's getting out and helping people, or caring responsibilities, whatever it is, you must fill your time with something that you're doing, do some good or get some experience. There's no excuse these days for sitting doing nothing. There's always something you can do, and reach out and offer your services. And funny, if you reach out and offer your services, you'll normally be paid. And whilst you're building your salary and all those things on your CV, you can still be floating your ideas at night times, at weekends, until you get the money up, and get somebody to invest, to roll with your ideas. You know, don't think it's one or the other.
Very good, very good. And I just had I'm close to your time there now, but just,
that's okay.
I had an earlier question from one of our Innovate Her. Now, by the way, sorry, I should just say that women in business also are very supportive of Innovate Her, and they're one of our partners as well on this. And the members of the Innovate Her program can join the Young Women's Network. So we've been advocating that they do that. So I think you've just kind of reconfirmed that as well, the advantages of networking organizations.
Sure.
I'm quite a big advocate of that myself, although I got married and have a couple of kids now, so I don't always get as much time to do it. But I always did find, just personally from an early stage, like you said, it's free, and you just never know sometimes if you just run into the right person at the right time, you know. Just quick one was, many successful entrepreneurs put a lot of emphasis on becoming your own boss as early as possible. Do you think there's a value and important experience of being employed by a firm before setting out to pursue your own business idea? And I think you kind of basically did that, like, you know,
Listen, no one's their own boss. No one. Either the banks are invested, shareholders are invested. You're usually, wherever you're working, if you're running any sort of sizable business, somebody is invested. So whether you're working for a corporation, so I work, as I said, when I came back, I got investment from PLC, and still part of that PLC, but I basically run the business how I see fit. You know, from the day we opened it, no one comes and tells me what to do. And part of that is actually delivering what you say you're going to deliver as well. But ultimately, we have shareholders that we need to give a return to. So I think that this idea that you're your own boss, there's always someone or something that you've got to answer to. I don't know, even the most, you know, even the biggest businesses, they're all answering to someone. So, you know, I would just say that no matter what, you might think you're all free if you're an entrepreneur. Well, that's all right. Maybe if you've got loads of money to invest yourself, and you've loads of money again to make your business bigger when you need it. But I think you're either answering to the bank, answering to shareholders, could be answering to a relative. There's always someone who you probably, or maybe even answering to your customers. And that's a big one. Your customers will be demanding, and if you're not satisfying them, they'll be even more demanding. So, and never mind your employees. So there's always someone there to yank your chain and keep you in check, I'd say.
I think as well, I picked up something you said there, just about perseverance as well. You know, just the importance, and like, we're facing, let's say, challenging economic times potentially next year, you know, post coronavirus, and that might be, you know, might create a, you know, kind of a fear or a negative mindset or concerns among some students, like, which is probably understandable. But I think it's important to recognize that, you know, they've to a certain extent, they've got time on their hands, and but perseverance, like, in terms of not giving up. You mentioned there about your story about contacting the Grafton people a number of occasions, you know, and just keep going, and eventually, you know, that kind of paid off. And I'm sure you've other story, you know, that was just one example. But
yeah, I think when the big announcement, it's like anything, the big announcement came out, and everybody was shocked and surprised, because it was a secret, but nobody really knew that I'd been knocking that door and getting slammed in my face for years. It's funny, I won that award, the Lifetime Achievement Award, a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, and to be honest, I was having 48 hours before that, I was having a pretty major incident, and I was dealing with some really important stuff in the business, let's just say. Can't tell you what it was, but it was really serious. And I was working round the clock to solve this problem that was huge for me. And I remember I got it sorted by about 10 o'clock on the Friday morning, and I had to run down to Belfast, and couldn't get, you know, I was going to do a picture because I was giving an award, didn't even realize I was getting the Lifetime Achievement Award, but I couldn't get, the women on this call will understand, couldn't get my hair done. hadn't had my nails done. I probably looked awful, and I just thought, look, I just need to sort this problem. And I went and I got this lifetime picture, and I remember looking at it thinking, I walked away because of COVID, they gave me a little packed lunch, and I went and sat on the waterfront. Sounds pretty dramatic. Went and sat at the waterfront there by the fish, you know, the fish in Belfast.
Yeah.
I just sat on my own eating a wee sandwich before I had to run to another thing. And I just thought, most people would never have a clue what I was dealing with over the last 48 hours. And they probably think, well, it's all right for her starting there, getting a picture, getting a lifetime achievement award. And I also think I was too young. I'm only 47, haven't even started really. So I'd say to people, you know, I've had many setbacks. And, you know, when we talk about women in business, you know, there is bullying of women that goes on, subtle, very subtle usually, and also discrimination in terms of your packages, how well we negotiate and how hard we push. And I think you have to get to the stage where you're prepared to, you know, have enough backups around you that you know you're never in a corner where you can't say, well, I want this, or potentially I need to walk, you know, but be prepared that you may have to walk. I think for me, I've had very tough times, you know, I've had in stages where, you know, I'm a very strong, confident woman. And I think it was about 4 years ago, I was in the group scenario where it was mostly men, but one woman as well. And they kind of ganged up on me, even though here's me, confident as the day is long, outgoing, you know, been around the block several times from Belfast, which doesn't, you know, I think we're made of hardy stuff. And there was some, you know, real group bullying going on. And I went home, flew home, got really upset, really questioning myself. And it took me a couple of weeks to get over it and decide what I would do. You know, how was I going to handle this? So all I'd say is you will be pushed. People will criticize you, especially if you're an achiever. People don't like you having a fanfare. People like to hate sometimes people that do well. I don't know why. But for women that are achieving as well, just be prepared. You will get pushed back. And just be prepared that, you know, even when you're feeling really low and someone's really questioned you and you're questioning yourself, which even happens when you're 47 and you've built several businesses that have all been successful, you know, just remember we all get that. And that's when it's really important to have people around you who are your crew. Well, that could be your best friends when you're younger. It could be people you end up networking with as you go through uni, or when you get into the world of work, you're constantly meeting good people. Just make sure you've got people around you that really appreciate and respect you and are inspired by you for you, not because of anything you can do for them. And I think when you go back and you open up and you've got these times where you're going to be challenged, that your crew can help you get back out there, stick the lipstick on, go again. You're not going to let it get to you. And I'll leave you with that, Kieran. I'm running in UK policy meeting, but thank you so much for the opportunity. And I wish everybody on the call good luck, and please link in with me. Never know, you might be able to hire me in the future if I'm ever stuck, or maybe I'll hire you. You never know.
I think anybody who'd have the opportunity to hire you would be very, very lucky. So,
thanks very much, Kieran. Good luck for the rest of your event.
Okay, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thanks very much. I think we'll have Claire. Is Claire there? Maybe.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Kieran. How are you?
Claire, how are things? Sorry.
Very well, thank you.
Sorry, could I just chip in before we hand over to Claire, just to say to everybody who's watching as a participant, if you guys want to put your hand up, which you can do along the bottom, there's an opportunity to do that. I can allow you to, I can unmute you and allow you to chat directly to any of the speakers. So we can maybe do that, Kieran, in the Q&A afterwards if we have time. So don't be worried about putting your hand up. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, just while people are on. So we might sorry, Helen, I was just going to say to you there, we might maybe move on to Claire as well at this stage. I know we kind of mentioned about,
No problem, Kieran. Good.
Okay, Claire, I like that background there. It's very kind of colourful that you've got the.
Thank you. Thank you. Fiona and I were trying to coordinate ourselves to make sure we both have the same. We've lots of Baker McKenzie backgrounds for different types of events and different things we go to, so we're trying to be a bit more coordinated today. Hi everyone, thanks very much Kieran and Helen for inviting me along today. If you don't mind, Kieran, I'm going to share my screen. I thought I'd use a few sort of pictures and visual aids to sort of help me through my presentation, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I mean, I did get your presentation earlier on, and I have it on the screen, but I just thought it might be handy if you just,
Yeah.
if you could, yeah,
I can share it myself if that's okay. There's
Yeah.
always that worry. I sent it through. There's
Yeah.
always that worry with technology that for some reason on the day it just doesn't work. But yeah, so that's a hard act to follow after our first speaker. But I'll probably move in a very different direction, but I hope it's helpful nonetheless. So my name is Claire Scholes. I work as a leadership and learning associate director at Baker McKenzie. And for those of you who maybe haven't really heard of or don't really know Bakers, we're a leading corporate law firm with a shared service centre based in Belfast, and myself and my colleague Fiona Matheson are here today to speak with you and answer your questions. So I'm originally from the south of Ireland, if you got that by the accent, but I've been living up here for well over 20 years. Went to college up here in the 90s, moved back down south for a while, and then ended up, my other half is from up here, and I moved back up over 20 years ago and have sort of called it my home ever since. So when I was asked to present at this event, I was thinking, gosh, have I ever really been entrepreneurial? It's a hard thing to think about because I've always worked for organizations, I've always worked for other companies, so it took me a bit of thinking around whether that was the case. And I remember back when I was doing my Leaving Cert, Southern equivalent of the A-levels, and you know, you're in a classroom and you're full of people who think they know what they want to be and they know what they want to do, and they're so clear about what they want to study, or if they wanted to go and do an apprenticeship in something, or you know, a vocational qualification or whatever it was. And I was one of those students who I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I really didn't. And I had a brilliant career guidance teacher, a gentleman called Mr. McGuinness, and he sat me down and he said, you know, what do you like doing? And I know that, you know, you can't necessarily make a career out of a hobby, but he said to me, you know, if you can work out what it is that you like doing, then from that, it might help you to think about your career. So I thought about subjects and I thought about things I like doing outside of work. And my favorite subject was biology. I really enjoyed swimming and was kind of halfway towards becoming a swimming teacher. And I generally liked working with and helping other people. My dad ran his own business, and I worked there during the summer and did various different bits and pieces. So, you know, I liked interacting and working with other people. The one thing I wasn't that fussed on doing was in any way going down the teaching line, or quite frankly, having an awful lot to do with working with children. I knew that that wasn't for me, and more adult working. So at the time, going back to the mid-90s, leisure management and studying leisure management was a very new course that was out. Back in the 90s, you know, you started to see a lot of hotels that were building leisure centres. You started to see chains of private leisure centres being set up. Many of them have come and gone, and many of them are still here today. And I kind of thought, well, that might actually help me to, you know, pursue my love of swimming and other different sports, along with the fact that, you know, a bit of science thrown in there as well around the whole sports science bit, but also my love of kind of helping other people. So I decided to do leisure management, and at the time, although I believe the programs have dramatically improved since then, I didn't realise that it was basically a business studies program with a bit of a slant towards applying techniques and running leisure facilities. And I remember in second year, I was sitting in a lecture hall, I'm sure you've all experienced this, where you're surrounded by a few hundred fellow students. And I'm looking around at everybody going, if I'm ever going to have a job in this, we're all going to come out of this and graduate, you know, this program and graduate at the same time. And how are you all going to get jobs? There aren't, you know, I don't see enough jobs advertised in leisure centres and things, north or south of the border, or anywhere that we're going to have an opportunity to work. And during that second year, I'd started to work in a leisure centre attached to a hotel down near where I'm from. And I remember having a chat to the manager there about it. And because I realised actually a private leisure centre being built attached to a really nice brand new 4-star countryside hotel, I was so surprised to see that it was actually run by 5 staff, you know. But I remember chatting to the manager there at the time. She said the one thing that really frustrated her about leisure management graduates is that they couldn't supervise a gym, couldn't teach someone how to swim, couldn't lifeguard a pool, and they came out with this qualification that, quite frankly, she felt wasn't, pardon my French, worth a damn. So I thought, what am I going to do to give myself that competitive edge, so that in, you know, a year's time, 2 years' time, when I graduate, that I'm going to get a job in this, that I'm actually going to have a career. So over the course of the next kind of 18 months, I finished off my swim and teaching qualification. The manager of that leisure centre that I worked in, she was an examiner for the Royal Life Saving Society. So she put us all through our bronze medallion, and then I asked her, well, how would I become an examiner? And so I went on an examiner's course, and I paid for it myself. And the one thing, you know, I kept up was working part-time in the leisure centre. Now, it was probably one of the most poorly paid part-time jobs at the time. And so many of my friends worked in bars and restaurants and other places where they were getting tips, and, you know, they were making far more money part-time than I was. But I thought, at least I'm getting experience, you know, I'll walk away and I'll have had at least a couple of years experience under my belt. I also did very unglamorous courses that I was invited to go along to, like a pool pantry maintenance course, which, quite frankly, was the most boring thing I ever did. But I thought, you know what, it's something else to put down on the CV. Didn't do the gym instructor, wasn't for me, but I did know how to buy in equipment. I knew how to service it. I knew how to assess it if something was wrong with it. And I left. I graduated, left college, and when I applied that summer for 3 permanent roles, I was offered all 3. So I had my choice, and 6 months later I was promoted to supervisor. And I remember catching up over Christmas. I was back up in Belfast, and I was catching up with some of my old student friends, and quite a few of them hadn't even managed to get their first job working in what they'd trained to do, and were still kind of working in bars and restaurants and actually seriously thinking about retraining into something else. So I suppose that's one of the first things I've always tried to think about throughout my career, is how can I give myself the edge above other people, because competition is tight out there no matter what role you're going for. So fast forward 4 years later, and the one thing I learned about working in leisure centres is there's a cap on your salary. So unless you're in a position to set up your own business where you can buy your own gym, or have your own, maybe set yourself up as a personal trainer, but even at that, you need to have nearly other people working for you so that you can really get a good salary out of it. I was sitting down one day trying to work out what sort of mortgage I might get, a bit of savings, and really kind of wanted to think about buying my first place. And I quickly realised that there was going to be a cap on the salary of my earning potential, at least for the next few years, and buying somewhere to live by myself just wasn't going to be an affordable option. And to be honest, 4 years into kind of doing what I was doing, while I really loved my job, I just wasn't sure if I wanted to do it forever. So I thought back to that conversation that I had with my career guidance teacher, Mr. McGuinness, all those years before. And I thought, right, what do I want to do? And again, I said, I have no clue. I really don't know what other direction I want to move in. So over the course of the next few months, I did several drafts of what do I like and what do I not like about my job. And I think I eventually came up with a list that looked a bit like this. So I liked teaching swimming, and I liked teaching adults, but I wasn't fussed on teaching children because I didn't have much patience with them. And I liked helping other people, collaborating, learning new skills. And I loved the security of being employed by a good, strong organisation. And I kind of liked that. I'd seen, my dad with his own business and all the troubles that had come with that down through the years, and that sort of thing. And I wanted that security. Things I didn't like, didn't necessarily have a great relationship working with children. I was getting fed up working weekends. Nobody tells you that when you work in leisure centres, you nearly work every weekend. Capped early potential, and I absolutely hated stock taking, but that's just a personal thing. So I decided to take the plunge and to go back to precisely where you folks are now. I went back to university and I studied part-time, and I did a business studies degree. Now, thankfully, quite a few of the modules from my leisure management degree were transferable, so I didn't have to start from scratch there. And I also did a certificate in teaching adult learners that allowed me to teach part-time at third level colleges, so that I could maybe then in the future think about maybe working to do my PGC FHE, or looking to see about getting into lecturing in some way if that was an opportunity. I stopped working in leisure centres and I got a part-time job working in all places, a company that produced blinds and window shutters. And they were brilliant because they allowed me to change my different shifts. So one semester I worked certain days, and then if my dates for my course changed, I was allowed to swap to other days. And it was a company that was expanding really quickly. And one of the biggest things I noticed is that when people joined this massively growing customer services team, they were kind of thrown in a bit at the deep end. There was nobody there really to onboard them and to train them up on how to do the job properly. So in my own time, I kind of thought, you know, I need a career when I'm finished all this studying again. And I thought, I'm going to put together an induction program for people joining the customer services team. Never mentioned it to anybody, just put it together in my own time. I thought, you know what, I can use it as a project for probably some of my coursework anyway, so I'll just do it. I put it together, and one day I went in and I said explained to the customer services manager what I was studying, and I said, look, I've had a go at doing this. I'd really love to present it to you. And so she listened, and it was coming up to the summertime, and she said to me, listen, do you want to have a go at maybe training up the next group of people that are due to join? And I said, yeah, sure, no problem. So I did that, and for the next 18 months, I was the lowest paid learning and development person without the title. So customer services wages, did all of their learning and development for all of their new hires. But at the end of it, when they knew that I was graduating and I was ready to move on somewhere else, they decided to hire a full-time learning and development person. And I went for the role. It was an open role. It wasn't just given to me. I had to apply like everybody else. But I do believe the experience I gained, albeit low paid and everything else at the time, helped me to get that role. And I did it for about a couple of years, and I thought, you know what, this is a good company, but it's gonna, you know, I wanted to go bigger. I wanted to work for a bigger organization. So I thought about, well, what have I got? I've got a couple of years experience. I also sort of paid for myself to do Prince 2 project management at the time. Company wouldn't pay for it for me, didn't see the value, but I thought project management is something that will never let you down. And I thought about the experience that I had to date around working with people in manufacturing, customer services, sales. And I thought, where around the countryside might there be a company that I could possibly look to hire me? And I got some help writing up my CV. So I wrote it up myself. I actually sent it to a professional CV writer, and it's one of the best £100 I ever spent because it came back looking a lot better. You know, it was just so much better written than the way I'd originally done it. So I applied for and was successful getting a role with the Coca-Cola bottling company, which is named Coca-Cola in Northern Ireland, based in Lisburn. And I worked there until 2010, and we were impacted by the recession a couple of years after everybody else. And a lot of the office-based staff were brought in and basically told, look, we're looking at redundancies. And I was devastated. I loved my job. I was dealing mainly with people in manufacturing, coming up with brilliant development programs for the management teams and so on. And I thought, right, okay, well, I can either just wait for this to happen to me, or I can do something about it. So I got out the newspapers, went onto the websites, and I started to look at other roles that were out there, and I could find nothing in Northern Ireland. I was living up here at the time, could find nothing that paid anywhere near what I was currently earning. So I just knew I was going to have to cast my net a bit further afield. And I started to look in the south of Ireland. I even contemplated, although I was in a relationship at the time and about to get married, even looking at, you know, do I have to start doing the red eye to London? Maybe that might be an option, but I needed to work, and that was just it. So a role came up in PayPal in Dublin, and I applied for it, and I realised applying for it, there was going to be a lot of travel, international travel involved, but I needed something, so I applied, and it took them over 3 months to actually finally go through loads of interviews, for them to phone me, and they phoned me 2 days before the voluntary redundancy phase in Coca-Cola was up and offered me the job. So I took the job, took the voluntary redundancy, and I never looked back. And I had a fantastic 5 years traveling the world with PayPal. I got promoted a couple of times when I was there, and I left there as a senior manager for leadership and learning, having managed the training and development for 7 outsourced sites around the world, 4 in the Philippines, 4 in North America, and sorry, I think we're 9, 4 in the Philippines, 4 in North America, and 1 in the north of England. But all of that international travel takes its toll, and I, a bit like our previous speaker, made some sacrifices along the way, you know, in terms of family and relationships and all of those different things. So 4 years ago, I decided I wanted to sort of move back to be closer to home. And I also kind of wanted to try something different. It must be something about kind of 4 or 5 year itch with me. But I thought, right, well, I've worked in a manufacturing company for blinds, food manufacturing, then I've gone into payments processing, what's next? And a role for learning and development senior manager came up in Baker McKenzie. Never worked for a professional services firm, never thought I'd ever end up working for a law firm, and was quite nervous about the prospect of changing career. But I'm really glad I did. 4 years on, I now look after all of the learning and development for our professional and business services people. And that's about 6,000 people based across all of our 70+ offices globally, and our 4 shared service centres, of which we have 1 in Belfast. So I suppose a final note for me in terms of what I've taken from my career is that, number one, I'm responsible for it. I'm responsible for my own career. People will help you along the way, but ultimately you have to take responsibility. I've made a lot of sacrifices along the way. I've paid for lots of my own development along the way. I didn't party as much when I was at university the first time around because I didn't have the type of job that allowed me to do that, but I did walk away with a lot more experience than my colleagues. There's some stuff I do differently. And also always along the way, I thought in my career, how can I make myself stand out from the crowd, but in a good way? So I just wanted to share that with you, but yeah, happy to take any questions or anything if anybody's got them.
Thanks very much, Claire. Yeah, that's a great progression there in terms of like from your family background at small businesses, then going into the leisure sector. And I thought it was interesting in terms of you were able to recognize like from an early age just that you needed that like competitive advantage, like looking around at the other students in the course, thinking 100 of these people are going to be looking for jobs in leisure and that, and also you invested in yourself in terms of like the likes of those Prince courses and paying for those yourself, and even things like that CV writing, you know, getting some paying, so giving you that little edge, you know, that perhaps people wouldn't always like consider, you know. Yeah, well, I just thought that I suppose we're running a little bit behind time. So are you going to be able to hang on for even another 5 or 10 minutes, Claire? Or
sure, I can. Yeah, that's no problem.
It's just I think like maybe if I could say to people if they had any questions, if they could maybe ping them to you in the chat, you know, that might be,
sure.
that might be handy. I know there was one from about it's kind of specific about like blended learning and online and that, you know, the kind of learning and development that one of our participants had. But thank you very much. Yeah. So and thanks again, as I said, to Baker McKenzie for sponsoring the event. And we're going to be joined now by your colleague, Fiona Matson, who I hope is.
Hello. Yes, Fiona, you are. Hi. Look at us with our coordinated backgrounds. You're impressed.
Well, listen, yeah, thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, I have bios and stuff like for our speakers, but maybe I'll just let you.
No, that's okay. I'll kind of cover it. And yeah, I don't mind at all. But I wanted to just keep you on your toes, Kieran, if you wouldn't mind actually being in control of my slides. Is that okay? Just I've only got 2, but there's just if not, let me know.
If I share the screen here,
yeah,
can people see it? Just a moment.
It's the really colourful one, that one. That's it. Lovely.
Slideshow.
Thank you
so
so
can
much.
Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I can see it. So Sorry, I've got two screens, which is why I'm always looking between them. But first of all, just thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to hear these stories and be a part of this. So I'm currently Senior Business Development Manager for the Global Banking and Finance practice at Baker McKenzie. As Claire said, we're a global law firm, and the banking practice, which I work with, has about 600 lawyers worldwide. And we essentially help secure finance for some of the biggest companies in the world. And at the moment, in light of the pandemic, we're working on a number of restructurings, sometimes called turnarounds or workouts, but basically for companies that are experiencing financial distress as a result of the massive disruption. So it's been interesting recently. A lot of my time has been spent on pitching to international airlines and retailers, names I'm sure you've heard of, for this type of sort of rescue financing work. That's now, but I've been asked to go back a little bit and just explain how I sort of got here. So I've just got a few pictures to sort of help guide me through. The first one is at the very bottom. You'll see. So I started studying at Edinburgh University. I studied politics and economics, and it was here that I applied for an academic research prize that took me to Durban, where I looked at the economic impact of HIV/AIDS in sub-Saharan Africa for a short part of my course. And I wanted to start there because I think my first piece of advice really is something that you are all, by participating in this program and following, but, and it has been mentioned already, but, throwing yourself into things and the opportunities that come your way whilst you're at university to build out your CV is really point one, particularly if you do want to go into professional services, or getting onto a grad scheme or something, you do need your CV to stand out. And seeing CVs now as I do, I can't emphasize enough that people that have already demonstrated that they have started to develop some of the skills that you need, through internships, through leadership roles, in various extracurricular activities. It is critical. And I think Tina said at the start of the call, say yes. So I here agree with that as a first starting point. But doing that sort of academic study, I guess, took my research there led me to further study at the London School of Economics, where I studied for a master's in development management, which is really like a practical version of development studies. So it's why are some countries poorer than others, what works and what doesn't work in terms of development programs. Absolutely fascinating. But my first job after that was, again in London. It was for a graduate program for a large asset management firm. And the reason was, whilst I was at LSE, I really learned a lot about the importance of finance making the world go round. We actually heard that from Tina as well. Ultimately shareholders, financiers are fairly critical to the business world, and I wanted to learn more about that, and so asset management was a way for me to do that. I think whilst I was there, so I joined on the graduate program, you get to go around and do lots of different things and sort of figure out where your best fit is. And I had never considered a career in sales before. Frankly, to me, it sort of conjured up probably quite outdated stereotypes in my mind of, fairly slick people selling cars and various things like that. But some very wise people that I worked with essentially pointed me in that direction and said, look, we think you could be good at this. And so I guess my sort of second key piece of advice I wanted to mention was listen to what people tell you your strengths are. They might not be things that you have necessarily identified yourself. So I was really impressed hearing Claire had a really clear vision of what she was good at, what she liked. I needed people to sort of remind me of that. They essentially said to me, we need people to take fairly technical financial products and sell them through storytelling and building a network. And so just to sort of mention something I didn't realize at university, but you should never underestimate the value of interpersonal skills. So if you're a good communicator, this can be a real commodity in a business. And it's something that I had, as I said, not really recognized in myself until somebody told me. So the picture on the slides of me on a boat was whilst hosting clients during this role. So I was sailing in the Solent as part of Cowes Week, which is a big sailing regatta. I was really lucky that sort of entertaining top clients was a part of my role. It was about building relationships and trust with some of our biggest clients. And it was definitely a personal highlight for me, sort of wondering how on earth I was being paid to go out and be on a yacht for my job. But it was wonderful. Whilst I was doing that role, though, I was headhunted by another firm that essentially wanted someone with sort of passion and energy to grow a new business. So an existing business that basically didn't have a background in charities and ethical investments, which is something I'd started to carve out as a specialism of myself. I developed in that role. So thinking about entrepreneurship, this was really about growing a new line of revenue for an established business, but somewhere where they didn't have a reputation for that at all. So I thought, what a great challenge, I'm up for that. This is where I thought I would maybe mention to you something that I'm surprised hasn't come up yet, but this idea about imposter syndrome, because I was still only 4 years out of university. And despite having been headhunted and other people telling me that I had the right skill set for the role, I was essentially sitting in a room predominantly full of older men with the responsibility for the development of a multi-million-dollar business. And that was quite intimidating. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I personally addressed that fear. For me, I took control of that and upskilled in areas that I felt I wanted to be stronger in. And give myself confidence to be at that table. It's interesting hearing Claire talk about all the ways she, had training and extra training. So for me, I did something called the CFA, or the Chartered Financial Analyst exams, which, if anyone knows about them, are frankly quite terrifying. They're 3 years of really tough exams, but they gave me the confidence that I needed, but I think more importantly, signaled to the room that looked quite different to me and to our clients that I was well qualified. And I think one of the pictures of me drinking champagne is the cheersing my study buddies when we finally passed that. So if we zip forward a little bit, when I was about to have my son Albie, who is now 4, he's a little blonde guy in the pictures, we moved to Northern Ireland. So my husband is from over here. And I now work for the global law firm Baker McKenzie with colleagues from all around the world. There's a picture of me hosting some of our most senior lawyers from around the firm in the Cathedral Quarter. So there's Gabriel Giglio Gomez, who is from Sao Paulo. There's Gavin from Tokyo. I very much felt like I was doing my bit for the Northern Ireland Tourist Board there. But it was fabulous having, people from all around the world there. And that's what I get now in my job. I think, as I mentioned, I'm sort of now working on quite large multi-jurisdictional deals and restructurings, and getting the exposure to colleagues and to clients from around the world is something I really love. And then just on that point, so there's a picture of my son FaceTiming me when I was in Washington. And, I thought I'd mention the reality of being a working mum with a small child as well. I think, one moment I was having quite a serious conversation about financing infrastructure in South Africa with some quite important people. And then 5 minutes later, I was pulling faces to my son on FaceTime and talking equally quite seriously about his bowel movements with my husband. So the reality of being a parent, it's something to, keep you humble, I think. If you just maybe go on to the next slide, Kieran, if that's okay. Yeah, I'll just quickly talk about a couple of bits. I know we're running behind. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. In my role, as I say, I'm very much in.
Sorry, is the slides up there? Is it, or yeah?
Yes, I can see it.
Yeah.
So just regarding sales techniques, I think this is a couple of bits just that I thought would be relevant both to selling yourself to an employer or selling a product or service. To me, the key is always to get into the psyche of your buyer. What do they want comfort in knowing, and how can you evidence that in a very short time you might have their attention? So what do they want to hear, and how can you make sure they hear that? And these are just a couple of things that we do frequently as Baker McKenzie. The first is referees and endorsements. So it helps if other trusted people vouch for you, simply. In Northern Ireland, knowing someone that can refer you or your product, it helps in a big way. So don't be afraid of working your existing network, your family, your friends, whoever it is. If somebody refers you into a role or refers a product to you, you're much more likely to use it. Obviously, companies do this. They might pay for celebrity endorsements on social media. There's ways of doing this as well. Very similar idea is with clients and feedback. So, think about how powerful it is to see on Amazon a 5-star rating, from thousands of previous clients. You're much more likely to buy it. For us in professional services, building a bank of client feedback is something we work really hard on doing and sharing that with prospective clients. It's a similar thing with accolades, awards, and accreditations. So from a sort of independent or seemingly independent body, verifying that you are good is a strong tool. So, for me, getting my CFA helped me do that. In a law firm context, it's often about being ranked by chambers. Is there a prize you can achieve at university? Is there something else? It's that kind of idea. So all kind of similar things, but getting other people to say how great you are. I wanted to mention self-confidence. So at least some level of self-confidence in your ability or in your product is important. And if you don't have it, it's quite hard for someone to feel comfortable that your product or your service or you are reliable. And it's a hard one because I want to stress, the little asterisks is to indicate that doesn't mean you have to be a sort of type A extrovert type person and exude confidence, but you can be sort of quietly confident. But it's something that, if you're going to be in an environment that makes you really uncomfortable and makes you nervous, you can absolutely sort of practice appearing confident through training. And so just keep in mind that is something that I think is important. Two very quick final points. So research, if you've ever watched Dragon's Den, you'll know that the people that always come unstuck are the ones that haven't researched properly and get asked questions they can't answer. It's human nature. If someone hasn't put in the effort and the research, you are instantly less inclined to bother yourself, basically. And more importantly, it means that you lack trust in what that person is selling or what they're doing. And, in an interview, if someone can't show me that they've read up on our company and on the role, it's an instant red flag, So just do your research, pretty basic, but it's important. And then probably the most important one on the list is tell a compelling story. So human nature is to remember stories and not remember facts. So when you're thinking about presenting your CV or presenting your product, your service, whatever it is you're working on, think about your story. And any marketing professional will tell you that's the case, but you will know it yourself if you try and remember a list of facts versus a story. It's a big difference. So just a few scattergun things that I thought might be important to impart. I think that's probably all I've got time for today. I've rushed through that, but if there are any questions, I've seen the chat going, so I'll have a quick look. But I don't know if you have any for me, Kieran.
Well, thanks very much, Fiona, for that. Yeah. No, well, I just think if people had maybe some questions, if they put them in the chat, they could direct it to yourself or to the group, and you can pick them up there. And, it is, in fairness to yourself, it was like 10 or 12 or whatever minutes. It's difficult to kind of get everything into that short period of time.
Yeah.
So, but I think you had some great insights and advice there for students, people who would be particular. And I enjoyed just your points there about particularly that way, even one at the end about like telling these kind of stories, things to trying to think about how do you make yourself memorable and stand out in that, and what people will, rather than necessarily these facts and figures, like is there some little anecdote or story or achievement that will help you stand out, you know? Okay, thanks very much. So our next speaker then is Finola Fegan, founder of Finca Skincare, who, hang on, I'll just stop my screen. Is Finola there? Hello?
Yeah,
oh yeah,
here.
yeah, great. Okay. Yeah.
The video, hello.
Yeah, well, not too bad. Thanks very much for joining.
Karen.
Hope all's well down in Carlingford direction.
Yeah, it's a bit windy, but apart from that, it's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, well, listen, sorry, we're just, oh, hang on, it's not there. Yeah, we're just running a little bit behind time, but I mean, I just thought perhaps if you just maybe introduce yourself and give your own kind of story there about like background, and there's a certain amount of like kind of career change in that as well, you know.
Hopefully. Okay. Can you hear me all right first?
Yeah.
That's good. Right, okay, well, I'm Finola, and I'm originally from just outside Newry, so I don't know if any of your participants are maybe from that direction. I went to the Sacred Heart in Newry. It was grammar school, and did the usual A level in A levels, and then on to university. So I'll go back a wee bit there, I suppose, because I've been asked about this before. How did I end up where I was? So I did well in the O levels, I suppose, and then I suppose my favourite O levels at the time would have been physics, biology, and history. I loved history, but a good history teacher. And I remember I was told that no, physics and biology don't go together. You have to do physics and chemistry and biology. You can't, you know. And I really didn't like chemistry, so I ended up. I was good at physics. I was probably maybe the best in the class at physics. But they said physics and biology don't go, but I like biology. I ended up doing physics, chemistry, maths, liked physics, hated chemistry, and useless at maths. So I ended up then doing engineering, and I would say a part of me just got through it. That's the honest thing. I think a part of me just got through engineering. Didn't really do much for me. The only time I really liked it was when they got somebody in from outside to lecture, somebody that was actually working as an engineer. And I liked that because a lot of engineering is sort of, it's like background to be any kind of engineer, especially in first year. And I was thinking, God, I could teach this course. Whenever I left, I was thinking the things that I really needed for my job, I could have taught in about 8 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Rather than 4 years. I remember thinking that. But anyway, I did a year out in England. I came back, I finished the degree, and I always knew if I was ever going to work at this, I would never be working for somebody else. I did it for a wee while. I was on site the time Fruit of the Loom. I don't know if you have heard of that. Fruit of the Loom was, they were setting up plants up in Derry and Donegal. There was a lot of American money coming in. So I was the engineer on site. I had my brother's wee yellow Triumph Dolomite. It was worth about 100 quid, and it got me there every morning, and I drove about between the sites pretending that I knew what I was talking about. And all I really was there was a bit of PR for your man that was back at the site or the design office. So anyway, I stayed, I did that for a while, and then I says, well, I got a bit of experience. My friend Catherine that had done the degree with me, she was back home, and I says to her, you know what, I think we could set up a wee consultancy in Newry. And I says, you go out there and go around them architects and try and get us a bit of work. But Catherine was not like me. She, you know, I would knock on any door. I don't really care. All that somebody can say to you is no, go away. So that's the worst thing that can happen. But Catherine said, no, I couldn't do that. And eventually, anyway, an architect that I worked with up in Derry, he said his brother was setting up in Newry, and he says he's looking somebody to do the mechanical and electrical end of it. And that's what we had done our degree in. So I says, I'll give him a quote. And I remember Catherine, she was working in Superdrug at the time. She couldn't get a job when she came home from England. She was working in Superdrug, and I used to go around and we'd get changed and we'd go to site meetings and things like this. We got the very first job. We started an engineering consultancy, 2 girls based in Newry. And I suppose we had that for about 15 years. And financially, it was good to us. You know, it was good to us. We reared our children under our desks. You know, I remember Catherine had her first child, and this baby was brought in and shoved under the desk because it was too young to go to a creche. And when the phone rang, we used to, I remember we had a rubbish office. Oh my God, it was the size of like a toilet. And somebody wanted to have a meeting in our office, and we knew they were just being nosy. So we sort of tried to tidy it up. And I remember my brother had a motorbike shop next door, and I grabbed Catherine's child and I run out and shoved him in under, or shoved the child under his desk next door. And we tried to have our meeting. So it was a bit of that sort of thing going on, you know. But anyway, I suppose financially the business was good to us, but there was always like a ceiling. Do you know what I mean? I always sort of felt, you know, men are making deals somewhere else, and they're not making them in crashes, and they're not making them while they're making the dinner. What we were doing, you know, rearing children and trying, you know, so there was always a ceiling to how far the business could go. I suppose if I had been in London working, maybe doing very interesting type of work, I would have stayed at the engineering. But ultimately I knew, you know, money's not everything. You have to have something. It has to be something satisfying, either whether it's the work itself or whether it's the business end of things. And there was always a ceiling to how much business we could do, you know. I don't know, it's just, so anyway, I says, Catherine, you know what, at 40, I'm not doing this till I'm 60. I'm quitting. When I was about 38, I said, Catherine, I'm getting out of this when I'm 40, and I don't know about you. And she says, well, if you're getting out, I'm getting out. So it took a couple of years out. Did a wee bit of lecturing actually, because I remember meeting an architect on the street, and he says, an awful pity for you two girls to have all that experience and not to pass it on. So, and I still actually do a few hours lecturing in DKIT in Dundalk in the construction courses. But anyway, while I was there was emails came around from, it's the RDC part, it's like the business part of DKIT, and they said, if you know any students that have a business idea, tell them about the New Frontiers course. It's a government-run course in the south of Ireland. So I emailed back and I says, what about lecturers that have business ideas? What about them? And your man says, come over and talk to me. And at the time I always had problems with my skin, and I had developed a product that suited my own skin. So I said, this is it. And he says, so I got on to the New Frontiers course, and I got on then to the second part of it, is where the first part is like, maybe there could be a dozen people, and then out of that dozen, 2 people are chosen. I happen to be one of the 2. You have to pitch your business idea, and then they'll give you a wee bit of funding to get going on it. But it's interesting, the more of those type of things you do, you know, I heard some of the girls talk about self-education and, you know, going out of your comfort zone a wee bit. I mean, I suppose the New Frontiers in a lot of ways, and I more needed to be doing the New Frontiers course, you know, it was on 2 evenings a week from 6 to 9. I was working at children, and a load of things going on, but I did it anyway and got on to the second part of it. And then that's really where you start meeting other people who are kind of like-minded, and they really start encouraging you to think, don't think about just, you know, don't think small, start thinking big. And I think women sometimes are inclined to think small. I think women are slightly more cautious than men. You know, especially in business, women tend to be more cautious. I was actually talking to your man, Gavin Duffy. He's one of the dragons out of Dragon's Den. And he says he nearly always backs women in business. He says, because investment wise, he says the worst that can happen is you get your money back. And, you know, after that, it's all a plus. Whereas with men, he says, you might get 10 times your money back, or you're just going to lose your shirt. He says they don't seem to do an in between, you know, where, you know, and I remember back to when we were engineering, I remember an architect saying, you 2 girls are really good at money. You 2 girls are really good at money. And I remember thinking, like, what does that actually mean? And I think I don't know whether it's just in women that we look after money well. You know, we don't, you know, if a client said, you know, if we told a client this job's going to cost you $500,000, that's what it came back from tender at. It didn't come back at 600,000 and we had to tell them, go to the bank and look for another 100, you know, that sort of thing we were good at. And I think women generally are good at that. Some of the other, so yeah, I'd encourage, I suppose, anybody here that's maybe uncertain about maybe the degree that they're doing, and I don't know if that's true among any of the participants here. You know, my thing was, if you've started it, I suppose finish it. If you're maybe, you know, that was where I said, you know, I could see, I suppose, the end that I might enjoy the job, which as a business, yeah, I enjoyed the business, except there was a ceiling to how much you could make. And my thing is always, that's what I love about what I'm doing now, is because it's an online business, it can be as big as you want to make it. It's only as limited as what your own ambition is. And I would say I'm probably in some ways ambitious, in some ways, you know, I love a challenge. I love seeing somebody asking there about what keeps you going and what keeps you motivated. The thing that keeps me motivated is like a year or two down the line. It's always something that's down the line. It's like, for me, I'm taking on, I actually at 3:30 I have a pitch meeting where I'm now pitching my business to investors, so that next year I can really begin to scale it up, where, you know, you're looking, maybe if I did a turnover this year, 200,000, next year I want to do 1 million, and the year after that, and 3 years down the line, then I'm looking to exit the business and sell it maybe to a large pharma company or something like that. It's things that you just sort of think, God, when I was making up my own wee bit of product for myself and solve my problem, it's things that I would never imagine. Only that you go and you sit on these courses and you meet other people and you get inspiration. And I suppose if there's one thing, it's don't be afraid to talk to people, you know, and, you know, you don't know where you're going to meet people again. You don't know, it's not that you're always on the lookout for people to help you, but generally people will help you. And I'm now, you know, I have a couple of people locally coming to me to see how to approach the local enterprise office here in Dundalk. What do you need to get ready to go in and get started? You know, so I suppose it works both ways, that hopefully I'll be able to help other people and people further ahead can help me. And I think that's how it goes. As regards, I would always say, you know, in anything, you know, always celebrate the, you know, achievements. Don't, you know, you always have to stop them. I think my father was a great example of, you know, he was 65, he was always a farmer all of his life, and he was probably a bit of an engineer. He always made things that he needed for farming rather than buy them. You know, he'd only buy what he had to. But when he was 65, he just decided, but obviously thinking about it, he just didn't decide it. When he was 65, he says, I'm going to build a golf course. And we all thought, oh God, what's he doing? You know, he used to invent things and, you know, all this. And he's decided he's going to build a golf course. And for 5 years, and he finished it when he was 70. I remember in the morning putting flags and holes and going, holy God, he actually did this. He changed this whole farm by himself, designed it and dug it and drained it. And I mean, we had rubbish farm. It was full of rocks, and he turned it into a golf course. And then when he was, so I suppose this thing about, you know, don't worry about your age. You know, don't think, oh, fuck, I should have all this figured out at 22. I'm 22. I should have all this figured out. I need my life plan. It's not really like that. I mean, if I was going back now, I would have ignored my teachers. I'd have done my physics. I'd have done my biology, and I'd done my history, and I'd maybe gone on to do medicine. And that's probably where I should have been. But then, you know, I might have been working in a hospital and half killed somebody, and maybe not, you know, I wonder if things are just meant to be. Sometimes I wonder about that. But the one thing I would say, even if you're in a job that you hate, you know, you make a plan to get out of it, but always do a good job while you're there. Always, you know, get a good reference from whoever, that there's something you can take with you, and you'll always learn. Even if it's a rubbish job, there's some wee bit of learning that you'll take from everything. And I suppose this thing about you could have a plan, and that's good. And some of these girls that are presenting here, you know, I find them amazing. But, you know, sometimes life just, you know, you have to do a wee bit, go out of your comfort zone a wee bit. You know, don't sit and complain, oh, I don't like my job, and I don't like my degree, and don't like, you know, do what you're, forget the first speaker there that talked about, she went and she looked at herself, she spent money on herself. What am I good at? What's my strengths? You know, you start looking at yourself, and then, right, okay, well, what suits that? And sometimes it just takes a bit of time, you know, like here I am kind of in a medical field after all this time, kind of, you know, talking to one of my investors, and he wants to get my product into the NHS. And I'm thinking, yo, I get a route to doctors. Yo, this is great. You know, so anyway, it's not all straightforward, I think.
All right. Listen, Finola, thank you very much for that. And I think you said you've got a pitch coming up at 3:30, is it? So
I have got a pitch coming up at 3:30.
So good luck with that, and we'll follow your fortunes. And well, maybe if you could hang on for another 10 minutes, if people
of course, yeah. I'm going
to have some questions, they can put them in the chat.
Yeah.
So very much, you know.
Yeah. Okay. No problem at all, Karen.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So our next speaker is Alison Miller. Hello. Is Alison there? Oh yes, Alison. I'll mute you. Are you? We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Hello,
Yeah.
hello, hello, everybody. Hello. Thank you for asking me today.
Yeah. Well, listen. Yeah. So Alison's from the world of TV and film production, and we did have a film clip, but I just think we're just under a little bit of time pressure there. So if you don't mind, if I could maybe share it around or I could discuss it with you after, maybe share it to the innovator.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, people might know some of my work. I'm not sure, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, anyway, well, where do I start about myself? I'm kind of unusual character because I guess I grew up in a place called Cullibackie. I was a pig farmer's daughter, and I worked hard. So that taught me one thing in life, that you got to work hard. Went to school in Ballymena Academy. I didn't like school very much. I didn't like Ballymena Academy. I didn't even like where I grew up that much, but I liked the animals. But what I enjoyed most was art, and I found that I went to a very academic school, and it was good, but it was I was into art. So I was the one always building sculptures in the middle of whenever we arrived in the mornings. I was always doing those things. So people always thought, oh God, there's that crazy woman. But you know what? I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I kind of had an art teacher at school who was just amazing. And it's always that one thing. Sometimes you find one person who believes you and gives you confidence. And that confidence is really important to move along. So I think listen to some of your speakers when I tuned in today. I mean, amazing people, and I can't see anyone else out there. So hello, it's kind of odd, these things, aren't they? But I think I find, oh, blimey, so it's a message. Am I supposed to, do messages come up at the?
That's okay. That's a message, I think, for
Oh, it's nothing to me. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
So I suppose I moved to England when I was 17, 18, and went to art college, and I was going to be a nurse at the Royal, and I'm glad I didn't, because I respect nurses so much with all my heart. But I think looking back, I probably would have been terrible. I probably have, been the wrong person because I talked too much. I probably wouldn't have done enough of the work, maybe. But I went to art college, and from there I got into the National Film and Television School to train as a director, which was kind of a big thing for me, because suddenly I was drawing in sketchbooks, and suddenly I knew I had a vision to do something, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that career was. I mean, my family just were in despair. What is this woman doing? I'm making films now. And I suppose I was very lucky, because when I graduated from the film school, which was amazing, I got to work with Mike Lee, one of the great filmmakers, and people like that for a while. Found my feet and started making films for Channel 4 in various places. And I guess when I look at that, and then, I moved back home to live and had my kids here whenever I was in my early 30s. And my world's very male. And it's getting better, because there's lots of, programs put in place to look at more female filmmakers and stuff. And I think that moving back here, I found it quite shocking, because at the beginning I trained on camera, so I could shoot all my own films. And I found it really frustrating that I'd go out and people would say, oh, where's your cameraman? And I go, it's me. I'm the camera person. And then instead of finding it as a negative, I took it as a positive, because I'd be the wee girl with a camera, and I thought, oh, I'm not going to argue, because I just shot amazing stuff. So I went, it doesn't really matter. And my relationships with people were key, because telling stories is what I decided I loved the most. So I think after that, I suppose my biggest break came. I had a film I made about a priest called Father Michael Cleary, who, quite a big story. He was the singing priest. He sold more albums than U2 at the point, and I made a film about him when I was 23. I lived in his house in Dublin with him and his housekeeper. And it wasn't until after he died that I realised that the material I'd been filming with him was actually about him and his housekeeper, who was also his lover, and they had a child. So this became a film that sort of launched my career later on, because I didn't do anything with the material. I was too concerned about Ireland and what was happening at the time, and I didn't know what to do with it. And then later on, I went back many years on, 15 years on, and made the film, and it got me my first BAFTA nomination. And I then learned how to fundraise to make bigger films that were important to me. So I suppose the thing is, when you know in your heart there's something you want to do, it's about just not getting distracted with the white noise and think, I know I can do this, because I felt there was lots of things along the way, obstacles. I thought, well, I can't do that, and I've just had 3 kids, and what am I going to do? And I'm this woman in this world, which is really difficult, and I want to tell these very strange stories. But then I teamed up with Dara McIntyre many years after that, and we won a BAFTA for a film we made about the cover-up of abuse in the church. And that was my first big breakthrough in current affairs, which is a pretty tough world to work in. And I think it was a moment that I realized that there was more than just telling the stories, and that there was things that could change things. So after that, I went on to make a film called The Disappeared, which was a really tough film about people who were disappeared and secretly buried all across Ireland. And I worked very closely with the families and Wave, an organisation here, which is an incredible organisation. And I found that even though it was a story everybody thought they knew, there was more to it. But each of these films I'm talking about now, as I moved into current affairs, had huge legal issues. And without working incredibly closely with lawyers, I wouldn't be able to tell my stories. So I think the importance of being able to film and give people a voice and let them tell their stories legally has been a massive thing for me, because every film I make, and especially with Channel 4, BBC not so much, but Channel 4 put a lawyer on your project from the beginning. So I may have my great vision to tell someone's story, but I need to know how to do it properly and how to do it so that I will get that film to air. So the sort of clips that I had prepared, which I think maybe you can share afterwards, Kieran, are clips from some of those films that are really difficult films that I probably didn't shy away from, because the people gave me the confidence to do it, and then working with my lawyers made it possible. So I'm making a film at the minute about my friend Lyra McKee, who was killed in Derry last year, and we were very close. So yet again, I'm working very closely with lawyers on this particular story. So I guess the people I film and the stories I tell inspire me, and I've learned that through the body of work, that every story is really complicated, and if I wouldn't say I've got it right always, and yes, you win awards, that's lovely, but there's a lot more to it than that. It's about getting the people their voice, giving them their voice and getting it right. So I think, as Lyra would say, brick walls are put up to see how much you want something. They're not put up to stop you. And I think that still is my mantra right now as I talk to you today. And I think it's certainly growing up in a rural place where filmmaking probably is a bizarre thing. If I'd have said then I was going to make films, it would have been strange, but I just followed my heart. And I think that sometimes you know things are right for you. And I think it's really good to find the things that inspire you, that you think, I really can do that. And look at the things. I mean, setting up my own business, I've got my own company called Erica Starling Productions, which was when I moved back to Belfast. I started working in various companies in the BBC, and then I suddenly thought, the films I want to make aren't necessarily like How Fat Is My Dog. I feel like I want to make something a little bit more than that. So I guess I then found stories I wanted to do, and I found I had to fight and find the way through financially, through systems, through grants or through commissions or through Northern Ireland Screen, to try and get the money that I needed to enable me to make those films. And I think that that's something I'm still working at. I'm not an expert yet, but what I think I've learned even in the past year, and certainly with this project, was that the best thing to do is try and find people that you really admire and reach out to them. You're only one letter away, one email away from someone who may connect with you. And I think that I've pushed myself to do that more. So on this project, I'm working with a guy called Andrew Eaton, who is an incredible producer. He's execing it for me. He was across The Crown and many films. He's shooting big movies at the minute. But I wrote to him and he suddenly said, of course, I'd love to help you. And I think maybe 5 years ago, I might have been a bit shy about doing that. Even though I'd won awards, I was still doubting myself, thinking everything's a puzzle, you've got to make it fit. Between that and juggling a business, which is not easy. And then there's something in there called normal life, which is where you've got kids and you've got a son who's just brought me some soup. Thank you very much. And all of those things that are really helpful along the way, that you don't need to, don't rule them out, just look around you for all that support. And I think, you know, I don't know, I'm not sure if that's helpful. I mean, I am an odd sort of businesswoman in that sense, but I'm very dogged, and I can be like a Jet Russell when I get really determined that this story or this voice has to be told, or this person has something, because I suddenly feel I'm fighting for them, not just for me. I'm fighting for someone that I really feel has a story that needs to be told. I guess, some of that. I suppose the clips were going to help me a bit with them, because you probably, I mean, I've got a mixture of work, and it's got harder, and I guess I'll not make anything harder than this one because Leah was my friend. So I'm probably at a junction in my life thinking, where does that go? Because this is the hardest of all, because I feel responsible to her family and her partner and everyone. I get it, and to her, of course, I get it right. But at the same time, what drives me on and thinks it makes me get up every day and carry on is working as well with the young people. Like, that was my son bringing me some soup. I've got a young team here who are the future. They're amazing, and they are really hard work. And so going back to the pig farm, that did teach me you had to work hard. So I'm not frightened of hard work. And I think just when you think that it's impossible, you can sometimes find a wee bit extra, and you think, no, I am going to really do that. Why not? I worked with Jerry Anderson for a long time when I first moved back here, who I adore. And Jerry used to always say, are you going to do that? And I go, but I don't know, Jerry. And he go, why not? Why not? And I can hear him still going, are you going to write to, you know, I don't know, whoever it is, you know, Clinton, I think I wrote to for an interview for The Disappeared. And he replied and said, of course I'll do it. So it's like a why not moment. But I certainly think, talking about the support you is a team. Making films is very much about a team and about inspiring the team you work with. So I feel the best projects I work on are whenever it's all collaborative. You might be the one person out there going, hello, I'm Alison, I won a BAFTA, but you're not. Your team are part of everything to you, and bringing everyone on board and having that support changes the whole project, because it's about inspiring them and getting them to, and they should be able to know you enough to say, are you sure you're doing that right? And be able to, you take up, because you can't, you have to learn every day. It's a different challenge. So, you know, perhaps there's some element in that learning that you're certainly not always right. You might have experience, but you could be really wrong. You need to really listen and surround yourself by people who are looking out for you as well. So I don't know if that's helpful information, but
that's great. It's and like I should have said, like, just, you know, you could catch people. The viewers may have seen some of your films and documentaries on the True North as well, and BBC Northern Ireland, you know. But there's a question for one of the innovators. It's actually just asking, so how did you get your foot in the door initially, you know, and any advice how to direct and get people to take your story seriously as a woman in the film industry? So I think you kind of alluded to that earlier on.
Well, I suppose I got my foot in the door because I went to this place called the National Film School, which is amazing. Like, my colleagues were people like David Thwaites, who went on to do the Harry Potter films. So I was lucky enough to win a place there, and that really was great. And that was probably early 90s. So I left home at 1988 or something, and, you know, went to England, and then this happened, and I got into this film school, which was brilliant. I was surrounded by people who were all wanting to make films, and it suddenly was like something clicked. But I suppose getting my foot in the door was just being a bit bold and writing to Channel 4 going, I've got an idea, I want to do this, or hello, I didn't belong to any company. I just wrote to people or went up to them at events and learned how to sort of chat to them. And I think in those days it was kind of unusual. I was a woman, I was filming my own stuff, and I was from this place called Northern Ireland that they didn't really know that much about. So all of that was a bit intriguing. So I suppose I just, you know, went up and went, hello, you know, I'm going to talk to you, hello. And I think that was the start of that being a little bit one letter away, just pushing it. And then I suppose, what was the second question? I can't remember that one about.
Well, it was just about like how to direct to get people to take your story seriously as a woman in the film industry. I think you'd mentioned something about how earlier on people had said, do you know, have a cameraman with you? Or
oh yeah. Well, I think the power was in my material. It was tough. And at one point I had literally the union somewhere and had said, I think it was BBC Northern Ireland I'd worked, and there was quite a lot of people a bit annoyed that I was this girl taking cameras out, and was I qualified, and was there a union issue with that? I thought, this is ridiculous. It's a tool that can enable you to tell stories, but the power was in my work, because they could argue about me being whatever I was, but they couldn't argue with what I'd filmed because it was good. And I knew it was good and the material was really strong. So the power came from me proof. I didn't fight about it. I just took the camera and sneaked off and did it and kept doing it and doing it. And I wouldn't go away. I wouldn't go away. I just kept coming back thinking, you know, I'm just going to do this because I am good. I know what I'm doing. And sometimes you do. I'm not saying I feel that all the time, but that's why surround yourself by sometimes mentors or people that when you do feel like you've been battered to a pulp, you have someone else going, come on, you know you can do this. You've done harder films. So teaming up with Darren McIntyre, for example, to do a couple of those films I did was amazing. He's truly a brilliant reporter. And not only that, was amazing with my artistic moments when I was doubting myself or fretting over something or overly emotionally involved. So I was worried about everyone. So he had some distance to say, you've got this. And I think finding that support around you, someone who's got good shoulders that you can lean on when you doubt or you question, and finding that mentor, I think, is really crucial. And you might go through a few because you might think, oh, that's the person, and then think, oh, that's not, they're not really calling me back. So I think it's about finding the one person who is going to help you and is really there. And people are busy, so finding busy mentors, it is busy, they're busy doing their stuff. But I just think making that time always, I mean, I'm working with a young filmmaker in Derry at the minute who wants to do a film about the Chinese community. She's incredibly talented. She's filming her own stuff. She's great. It's great about just, you know, she's got a story to tell and she should tell it. And she's the right person to do it. So you're earning your right by saying, this is my story and this is not, I can do this. And it is difficult, but it is getting better. And the way it gets better is by sticking in there and just say, I'm sorry, I really got this. And it's about that confidence to say, I really can do this. And I think I just kept sticking in there. And it's that brick wall, it's up and I'm going to go over it. It's like, you just have to think, it's what I want to do. So I'm going to keep at it, hopefully.
Well, so thank you very much for that. And I will share the little film clip maybe to the participants afterwards. And maybe, I don't know if you could stay for the maybe 10 or 12 minutes.
Of course.
People have some questions they could put into the chat there.
Yeah, of course. And the clips are kind of, one is from The Disappeared, the second is from a dispatches I made where we were trying to look at children with learning disabilities and autism who were locked away, treated really badly, legal issues to the eyeballs. And then the last one was just a funny clip from a film I made years ago about a little boy in the Shankill, and it went viral. And I didn't realize what hit it was, but it was just thought it'd make everybody laugh. So.
I watched that one. Yeah, I did.
You might remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, sure. I'll hang in. No problem.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Not at all.
So our next speaker then is Suzanne Wiley. Suzanne.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Great. Thanks for joining us. So Suzanne, Chief Executive of Belfast City Council, but also a former Queen's student, I believe.
Yeah, well, that was for my postgraduate. Did an MBA.
Oh, was it right? Okay,
yeah,
okay, yeah. But no, look, thanks for taking the time out of your schedule there to join us and to talk to our innovators and other students just about your own kind of career background, and then maybe you're going to touch on in terms of Belfast City Council's vision and supports for SMEs and entrepreneurship in the city, as we're in Global Entrepreneurship Week this week, you know.
Of course. Yeah, Kieran. So great to be here. I mean, I feel quite old coming on to this call, I have to say, because one of the things that Kieran had said to me, you know, how's the world of work changed? And I had to think, right, okay, well, from when I started, that was 32 years ago, I actually have worked for Belfast City Council for that length of time. But it's been a remarkable journey. I've done practically every job in this council. And I started as an environmental health officer. And believe it or not, when I was thinking back to the changed world of work, I mean, we didn't even have computers when we started. We didn't have mobile phones, you know. When you were thinking about advertising, you had to do it on the radio or on a billboard, no such thing as social media, etc. And I was listening to some of Alison. So hi, Alison.
Hello.
Hello. Good to see you. You know, she was talking about, you know, learning the hard way sometimes, and I feel that that's you know, how I've done things and how I've gone up through the ranks in this organisation, and you know, character building things that will happen to you along the way that, you know, you will hate at the time, but actually kind of make you think, well, do you know what, I could turn my hand to many, many different things. And I think that's really important about your attitude, to think that way, that, you know, the more you get under your belt, the more experiences you have, the more you try, even though they might be a bit frightening, and even though you know, you mightn't do brilliantly at them at first, then you can, you know, absolutely achieve so many different things. When I came in at first as an AHO, I had to work in a meat plant for about 6 weeks. Can you imagine that? And I was the only female there. And that certainly was character building. I used to come in the mornings and find nice bits of animals, which I'll not tell you which particular bits, you can probably guess, given that they're all males in the environment, in my welly boots, because they thought that was very, very funny for me. So, and they also sent me down manholes to take gas samples on our old landfill sites and things as well. So lots of worms in the hair and those kind of things, all character building, mind you. So I have moved around. This organisation has changed dramatically from those days. The whole pace of everything that we do and the decisions we make changed dramatically, and of course the council role has changed dramatically. And since I came in as chief executive, I was absolutely adamant that we had to move away from just being about delivering services to all the residents. So we collect all the bins, of course, we provide all your parks and all your leisure centres, but actually really building this city and supporting business and supporting the economy. And that's what I've really focused on since becoming chief executive 6 years ago. So one of the big things that we have achieved is to get an £850 million city deal investment. So that's money from Westminster matched with some money from our Northern Ireland Executive and some money from the councils. And what we're going to do with that is absolutely invest in innovation, in centres of excellence, of research excellence that can then commercialise and spin out small business startups and support all of you guys if you're as entrepreneurs, right? And investment in digital connectivity, whether that's wireless or whether that's 5G networks as well, so that sectors that we're really strong in can really flourish and grow and become, you know, competitive on a world stage, and investment in infrastructure as well. So that's just a couple of examples of how things have changed significantly. Of course, politics, I work for a political organisation, as you can imagine, and that's why sometimes this can be a tough role, because I have 60 councillors who are in fact my bosses from 8 different political parties. So I have to keep them all happy all of the time, and that's not easy. But it certainly, you know, is something that is really important in the world that we inhabit, that we do help the political system, and that's really my role. My role is to be here to help those politicians make the right decisions about how they can support the economy, how they can support small businesses to really flourish in this city. And some things haven't changed either in the world of work since then. So really, really important things that are, for example, you know, the relationships that you build, that's essential, right? You know, Alison's mentioned some of the people, like, when you mentioned Andrew Eaton, whom I know, for example, you know, who've come from this place, right? And you build really strong relationships with those kind of people, the diaspora. And you know, we are a people of great warmth, and that is known throughout the world. When people come here for the first time to think about investment, they just fall in love with the place and they fall in love with the people. And so sometimes my job in terms of selling investment in the city is very, very easy, but relationships are absolutely key to getting things done. And I would say for entrepreneurs, small business startups, That's absolutely essential as well, because you're going to need your marketeers, you're going to need your public sector support, like me and my organisation, and you're going to need your funders, and then you're going to need your supply chains and your networks, etc., to make all of that happen. So that's absolutely fundamental.
Very good. Thank you very much. And I think people shouldn't underestimate how important the likes of that city deal is, and how difficult, you know, there was several years of lobbying, I suppose, to try and get that one across the line.
Sure.
As far as I recall, but you know, that's going to be really exciting for Belfast, and I think Derry has that as well, have they? Or
yeah, Derry, and so then the southwest as well, and Causeway Close and Glen.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
Getting them all over the place, and actually the focus is clearly on innovation, and we're working with the Harbour and Catalyst Inc. as well, and the universities, to create a new innovation district around Titanic Quarter and around the Harbour area. So our hope is really from that district that we will have a collection of entrepreneurs and business starts who will work with researchers, who work with larger enterprises as well. And, you know, they'll have all this accessibility to 5G and wireless, etc. And we will pump, and with Invest In, I will pump money into challenge funds to, you know, ask them to solve city problems, for example, and then they can develop products and prototypes and can start to test those out in that area, and also then can sell them to the rest of the world if they become actually viable products. So it is really, really, really important, with big focus on the sectors that, you know, are going to grow here. And I guess those are the sectors that the people, you know, who are going through this course are focused on. Creative, of course, film industry that you just heard about, animation, financial technology, life science is incredibly important when you think about this pandemic that we're currently going through as well. And of course, advanced manufacturing and advanced engineering, which are at the heart of our economy here in Northern Ireland too. So we, you know, we have a new brand for the city as well, and which is our Belfast Starburst, and see that there, okay. And again, I felt this was important because this starburst, and basically the shape, so this bigger indent here is the harbour into the city, and these are all the built up areas of Belfast, but actually it's supposed to represent a future looking Belfast, a very useful, edgy Belfast, a Belfast which is really confident as well about its future, and of course, you know, the entrepreneurs and etc. on this call, that it's to represent them, it's to represent the tech community, it's to represent innovation, etc., and the future of our world of work here, and of course a great place to come and visit as well, and experience and try and understand too. So it should be used by everybody, and we feel that for small businesses as well, it will make them feel part of a bigger picture. And you also mentioned that this is you know, Global Entrepreneurship Week, Kieran. And that's really important to us in council, because we do provide a lot of support for entrepreneurs, whether they're at school, whether they're at university. We do have programs that cover that. We also provide a lot of support for startups, whether that's helping write business plans, whether that's just mentoring and support along the whole life cycle, bringing in specific expertise for some of those businesses as well, and helping them find access to finance as well is something else that we provide. And this week, I would encourage anybody to go on to our website at the council and just have a look at some of the things that we are doing, because we have a few interesting events like Confessions of a Startup, and a virtual lunch for entrepreneurs and people who can support and enable you. We've also got a virtual Christmas market this year. Unfortunately, we couldn't have our normal Christmas market, although I have to say it's usually right outside my window here in my office that I'm sitting in, and I go home every night for about 8 weeks smelling of kangaroo burgers or whatever it is. So there are some positives, there's some pluses as well. But we have a virtual market, and we have an online sales webinar, and we have how to write a pitch. For a 67 seconds pitch as well. So I would encourage anybody to do that, and particularly females, because we know that from research that's been done, if you've heard of the Rose Report, this lady, Rose, looked at the difference between women who were entrepreneurs and the amount of investment on males. And in the UK, only 33% of entrepreneurs are women, but even worse than that, when it comes to where venture capitalists are putting their money, only 1p in every pound of venture capital goes to female-led businesses at the minute. So girls, we have to do something about that. We have to make a real difference. And you know what? The flip side of that is that if that was reversed or equalized, right, then we could actually together add 250 billion pounds to the UK economy, which is just phenomenal. And you know what? Boris is out there. I mean, I know he was talking about climate today and a big budget for climate. And zero carbon innovation was announced this morning, but there is so much money out there for innovation. Innovate UK actually have billions of pounds of investment for, I know this is at a different stage, but whenever you get your big ideas and you start to push them out there, there is a lot of money to be had, and we can help as a council to help connect you to the various stages of those funding life cycles. And one big example, for example, in Belfast at the minute, if you've ever heard of Artemis, it is a company, small company that was set up here about 3 years ago, and it is building a prototype for the first carbon neutral passenger ferry in the world, and it's just got 33 million pounds worth of funding from the UK, which is just phenomenal. So there's lots of good news stories out there too.
Yeah, that's all very exciting in terms of, like, I was thinking about that green, or the announcement this morning in terms of, look at Belfast, and even those, you might be looking at like legacy industries like the shipbuilding and engineering, but that those can then be just repurposed, and maybe that kind of muscle memory is still there within the in terms of those kind of industries to be able to repurpose for the 21st century. But
it is. I mean, we were a city of inventors. That's where what a brilliant industrial past we've had, and I think it's still in our DNA. And I know that a lot of those companies, Holland and Wolff is looking at hydrogen, for example, and we know that our buses here are looking at hydrogen fuel cells, etc. We could be the first in the world to do some of that too.
Brilliant. Well, listen, thanks very much, Suzanne. Thanks for your time. And yeah, I should just add, just the likes of Belfast Enterprise Academy. I think that's one of the events that you mentioned, that tomorrow they're going to have stories with some entrepreneurs, and there's going to be some of the Queen's Student Union, the Enterprise SU, some students that we assisted as well over the last year or two. They're going to be talking at that event tomorrow, and certainly Belfast Enterprise Academy is a great initiative that we often direct students to. So thank you for providing us with that. Yeah. Well, yeah, I suppose I have some quick questions. Now, one is kind of a bit more general, like so looking back, what do you wish you knew in your early 20s about pursuing a successful career?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Okay. What do I wish I knew in my early 20s? I think I probably wish that I relied on other people a lot more than I did initially, so that I created more of teams approach to how you do things, because sometimes we try to do everything ourselves, and we can, run out of energy very quickly. So there's a lot of help out there, and I guess that we should tap into that, and also tap into, if you've some really, really strong mentors as well who can support you along the way. That's incredibly important, because we all get days where we think, oh my goodness, I'm overwhelmed, or oh my goodness, this isn't working, and then sometimes when someone else reflects that back on you and how far you've come, I think that's really important. So I think it's to take more advice and get more support around you.
And I think it's like you mentioned there about a mentor, somebody maybe that you can have perhaps over the course of over several years, from an early age, that knows you from what you were from maybe your early 20s or 40s or whatever.
And perhaps it's not just one mentor, right? Because you might have somebody who's that kind of steady person who you've just described, who's there and knows you really, really well, and then you might have different people come in at different points in time, depending what your challenges are at that particular point in time. So I might want someone to reflect back on me and how well we're doing an investment into the city. So I might want some, expert mentor to help with that. And I also, look at other places regularly and talk to counterparts regularly as well, other chief executives across the UK. I just want to make sure that Belfast is doing as good as everybody else. So, I talk to Leeds and Cardiff and Glasgow and etc., just to make sure we're ahead of the game.
Okay, that's brilliant. Well, we look forward to the rest of the global entrepreneurship.
I know, it's a hard word to say.
Yeah. I often misspell it, I don't know, people should have come an easier word.
Thank goodness for spell check when it comes to entrepreneurship.
but there's certainly exciting times for the city in terms of these city deals and investments in infrastructure. Despite, I know, coronavirus, it's always there on the agenda in terms of being quite, it's a negative, and it's something that, it's unprecedented times, but I think, that hopefully we'll get through it, and it's like resilience, and be prepared for the next year or two. It's not always going to be like this, and that you mentioned earlier about networking and the value of that, and it can be difficult for students and people now to be able to get out there and physically, meet people, but that's gonna hopefully ease up maybe next summer or
well, obviously we're all looking forward to the vaccines, and obviously that's really good news that there are at least 2 now that are going to be on the market. And however, I do think we have such strong fundamentals in Belfast in terms of our skills. The level of education that people get here, in terms of the sectors that we have real strengths in. I think that for Belfast, it will be a blip in terms of its economy. I think we will come back strong, and I don't think it'll be too long before we do. And our people are resilient. We've been through a lot, as lots of Alison's films, I'm sure, show. So, we do bounce back every time, and we do think of creative ways to do things. And the sectors that we're strong in are, for growth, are those that haven't been impacted just quite as badly. Of course, we have to support our retail sector and our hospitality and tourism sectors to bounce back as well. But, think of the creative industries, they're still, moving ahead. Now, I know it's difficult for all of us. And we've had to adapt very quickly to how we work and to these kind of environments. And we will probably always have a bit of a hybrid approach now going forward. But I do think people will come back into the city, the offices. I think we'll probably reimagine places like the city centre, and we want more families to live there, and we want it to be much more about open space and etc. And I think we will obviously change how we think about making sure that everybody in the city can benefit from economic growth as well, because we are, you know, we do have a lot of inequality in the city, and we have to address that issue. And I also feel that in terms of climate change, we've learned a lot of lessons during COVID. We knew we had to do something incredibly different and take some radical decisions. And, you know, now I think it's going to be a lot easier for us to implement some of those changes that need to be made with much more, you know, cycling, walking, etc., rather than everybody jumping in their cars, but also innovation too, when it comes to how we reduce our energy, our carbon input to energy across the city as well.
Very good. Well, thank you for that. I've just a couple of final questions. They're actually for Alison here.
Suzanne, you're brilliant. I love Suzanne. I mean, I forgot I think we've met before, but
have you been in my office, Alison?
I have. I'm gonna go through the website now, because you've reminded me of. I'm just thinking, oh, I'm gonna check that out. That's because, you know, business. That's, you know, I just think you always finding someone who's got a can-do approach, saying there's a problem, but let's find a solution. So love to hear you. You've just filled me with inspiration all over again. Sorry, go ahead, Kieran.
Oh yeah, well that's inspire me. That's the title of our event.
Of course, and it's worked. Brilliant. What did you want to ask me, Kieran?
Well, I had a question here from Elizabetta, just saying, it's quite a bit specific, but she says, my startup is related to costume making. Mm-hmm. Can you give me an advice on how an outsider can enter into the filmmaking industry?
Well, I think Northern Ireland Screen is a good start, because they're incredible and they're really very supportive of talent and getting talent into the business. And there's always, I mean, there was literally a call yesterday for people for another big movie that was coming to town. And I think writing to Northern Ireland Screen I'm not, they'll be on the website, but even sending a thing in about getting some experience, or, you know, even shadowing someone in the sector. Definitely, they're incredible. They have lots of schemes. They have lots of training schemes. I think they won for art directing recently. So, and there's a lot of films that are still here being filmed, and it's still working, and it's a huge part of the city now, and very exciting. And they are really brilliant. I mean, they've supported me for years, and many of the young people that have come through here. So I definitely think drop an email to them and say what you want to do, and say, is there someone I could talk to, or drop an email to. It's only one letter away, and you know, there's just definitely lots and lots of films coming, and here, and more coming. So definitely write to Northern Ireland Screen, definitely.
I can back that up as well, Alison. With, you know, there are huge plans to do more in terms of the film industry. You know, we have 2 massive studios, and also the Lip Studios as well. But there are plans afoot now to build another set of studios beside the ones at that the Harbour have built at the Giants Park, and they know they aren't going to build those just in case you know, some big film company might come along. So they know there's a pipeline here, and they're going after that at pace.
So they're really going to need lots. So if you work in costume, or you work in that, I mean, those are very, very good roles to get and be based here and training them, because you don't want to have to fly people in to do it. You want to have people here who live here and who are working on these projects, and that's very much what Northern Ireland Screen's about. And so definitely write to them, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to visit the Harbour Studios whenever they were about to film Krypton, which is the prequel to Superman, and it was an industry. It had, you know, model makers, it had costume makers, they're all local. It had basket weavers, it had carpenters. It was just unbelievable hive of industry, and that, you know, can happen again and again and again.
Definitely.
Well, the next question just was for Alison now. It's kind of related to that one you've just answered, just saying one of our students here is a drama student, considering their options after graduation. They're saying that the sector's taken a hit with the pandemic, and if you could recommend work experience opportunities in your own sector or experience to look out for when recruiting others. I find hands-on practice always the most beneficial in terms of learning and getting ahead in the world of art. So I suppose that goes back maybe to your
I think it's like keeping an eye on what's coming up with that, because I'm not sure if I know that Carla Strong, there's quite a few big agencies that deal with actors here that are incredible. I mean, she's one of the best casting agents in the world, and she's just up the road. She's amazing. So there's Carla, but also keeping an eye on that Northern Ireland Screen website, because they put calls out. So when things come in, they also they announce things. So you can be ahead of the game, saying this is coming next year. So you can do some research into that and just send that email, definitely. And it is definitely a hard time in that sense, because with the theatres and everything being trapped in the way they are, but it will change, and it's good about get yourself ready and start reaching out and make more connections while you are. It's amazing how many of these webinar things are out there that you could, I mean, I keep booking myself up for films in New York and then waking up at 2 in the morning trying to make sure I can log on, because there's a lot of things we can access at the moment through this. So actually, even though we're trapped, we're not. You can get more. There's more out there to get. You can feed your needs and your development, because you just be really nosy. I mean, that's my big thing, is always be nosy and find, oh, there's a way. Be nosy, keep going. You'll find things out there all sitting there at the minute. Definitely.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thanks very much for that. I don't see any other questions here. Hang on. I don't, yeah, so Helen's just, has put up the link to the Northern Ireland Screen there. Yeah, so if I don't have any other questions, I'd just like to say thank you very much to Alison and Suzanne, to all our speakers that joined us this afternoon. Yeah, I think I got a lot of it even personally, I mean, Suzanne, you mentioned about the world of work and how it's changed. I was just telling one of my work colleagues, you forget things like, I used to work in an office where people used to smoke. So my colleagues you could go in there and used to smoke in the office. And imagine trying to bring that back,
Oh, Suzanne, I've been down the drains as well. I remember I did a film down the drains for Channel 4 where I went out years ago, and there's a lot of tomato plants grow down the drains. I didn't know that.
Let's hope we don't feed those tomatoes to anybody though. Not.
No, but it's a getting your hands dirty, I suppose.
Of course it is, getting your sleeves rolled up and just getting on with the job in hand, of course. Yeah, but smoking's definitely not coming back into the workplace, Kieran.
No, I don't think so. All right, thanks very much. And like I said, we look forward to the rest of Global Entrepreneurship Week. And thanks to Alison and Suzanne for joining us.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, very welcome. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Bye, Kieran.